the seated queen. 8-8 is seated queen. 80 is an open queen seat. 880 is an open empress seat. 888 is the empress seated. So when we're looking at the events that's taking place and the timing of events that's occurring, converging, we are at the close of the Aquarian, of the Piscean age, the opening of the Aquarian age. We in the Jubilee year 2022, which cancels all contracts. Then also, this is the third year in what we call the redemption process of the organic people from the land to reclaim their birthrights and restore the land. Now, we've seen the Pope make a Canadian visit, and he had to be publicly put on notice to his face that his rule is over with, because we operate from a higher standard of law, and no longer can the daughters of the land be compelled to operate under the foreign jurisdiction, because the superior law has been activated. And she put him on notice that the matriarchs across the land has stationed the chiefs. They already put the chiefs on notice to cleanse the land. And what that means is that it is our job to reestablish government, which takes us to Noble Drew Ali immediately. Because one of the things that he say in the oral statements and prophecies, for those who don't understand, Noble Drew Ali won't understand what he's talking about. But he said that he would leave these people in power long enough for us, the organic people of the land, to learn how to run government. So when he declared that we was Moorish nationals, there was an agenda attached to it, a legal maneuver to navigate a contract. Now, Ty's been telling us for years how to navigate this contract so we not victimized by it. And he's been reiterating the same thing. These people is a de facto corporate entity acting in a legal capacity as if they are the de jure or the rightful owners and lawmakers of the land. They are not. So who are these people? Where the hell did they come from? Right? And who do they represent? So when I trace back, another thing Noble Drew Ali said is, I need for you to get a good Moorish education. Moorish education is not restricted to Moorish science doctrine, nor the dogmas attached. The doctrine of Moorish science traces all the way back to Rome. And we understood that, and we've seen different things transpire over the course of time, but most of us don't watch what we call the long game, right? So we in a 6,000 year lunar cycle of the 4 cycles in the age, right? So it's a 24,000 year galactic clock. And it is the 2 lunar cycles, moon cycles, and there's 2 sun cycles, and they each separate one from the other. They alternate like fan blades. Now, the reference in understanding the time is Charles Mosley Bay's Clock of Destiny. Because if you don't understand the Clock of Destiny, then it doesn't make sense, the alignments of the stellar arrangements, nor their effect on Earth. So then that takes us to the metaphysics of Moorish science, which takes us to C. Freeman Eel, who thoroughly broke down the masonic secrets behind Moorish science in the Moorish science that was withheld in the masonic secrets, right? So along comes Hakeem Bey to explain to us the tribal connection between the ones we call the righteous Moors, which will by default expose the ones that we call the dirty Moors. We call them dirty Moors because they pretend to be with us, but their allegiance is to some other entity not from Earth. In that allegiance, they have sworn war against us until the close of the age, what they call the end of time. The end of time is the close of the age. This is now. We going into the Aquarian age of knowing. That means that the secrets now have to be exposed to the public in a fashion that the public can assimilate who it is doing the dirt, where they at, and how to get rid of the motherfuckers. So they came in as Spanish conquistadors with Christopher Columbus, but they preceded him and they sent scout ships over here 100 years prior to Columbus. References they came before Columbus, edited by Ivan Van Sertima. So once they got over here, the elders who left the tradition in the South, South America specifically, said, we didn't see any ships. Now that's blatantly sticks out to me as an open secret, because we were a seafaring people who sent Algonquins to fight in the Iberian Peninsula against these same motherfuckers and aided them in ridding the land of these same rogue elements that was using adrenochrome, bloodletting rituals from Babylonian blood magic. They was using Babylonian money magic, and they were using Babylonian sex magic as the tools of conquest in order to subjugate a people. They turned the boys into effeminates, metrosexuals, in order to make them not resistant to the rule of a foreign entity, and they not as apt to protect the women if they are not divine masculine, right? So now in comes the Masonic Lodge under Prince Hall, the Blue Lodge on the father line. We understand what Prince Hall and Absalom Jones was doing when they were digging up the Masonic secrets as a apprentice under a under a York Rite Masonic Lodge, who wouldn't give him a charter. So he went to England and got a charter from the Scottish Rite in order to institute his knowledge of the York Rite over here. So he had to go to the other lodge, what they call the Great Grand Lodge in England, and get the charter, right? Well, that was not a charter from us. It wasn't until Malachi York went to Cairo, Egypt, to the original adepts to recover the Masonic charter from Cairo directly, which bypassed all European organizations that was infiltrating. In the process of doing this, he uncovered a sacred record that he called the Sacred Record of the United Nubian Nation of Moors. And in there, he goes into lectures in the ancient mystic order of Melchizedek, in the ancient Egyptian order, and in the Sufi order of the Green Light, as to explaining that these people came over here to usurp us, to undermine us, and to replace us. They gave us the Bible because the Bible is their contract, but it's a spiritual contract in a conjure book and a grimoire, and it's also a riddle. So you have to decode the Bible in order to unlock the code of the Christ secret. So we talking 33 BC, 33 AD is the time frame. It's a 66-year time frame to find 122 degrees on Mount Calvary in order to get to the exact date in September in which the so-called crucifixion supposed to took place, as opposed to what we call Easter, which is the ceremonial worship of the mother as Ashtar or Ishtar, the great mother, who is the guardian of children, right? So then the rabbit being the patriarchal symbol of a virile male, right? So the rabbit was a man the whole time. And the rabbit had the gun, but he ain't know what to do with it, right? So he got sacked by the wolf. So the wolf caught the rabbit, took the gun, and then the hawk had to come recover the rabbit from the wolf. These are metaphors in the Masonic Lodge. The wolf is called She-Ra. She was the one who nursed Romulus and Remus, and these are the founding fathers of Rome. Whereas Remus, the one became Rome, was the warrior, and Romulus, who became the conscience or the intelligence, became the scholar, which tells us in this land that they came over and they used scholastics, right, and warfare in order to subjugate us, which takes us to the Gullah Wars that they call Seminole Wars. Now, you know who's dictating what took place in the wars by what they call the war. So when we call them Gullah Wars, we know that all of the tribes from as far away as the Polynesian Islands, south, west, as far north as Alaska and the Eskimos, the Inuits, all sent soldiers, warriors to fight in Florida in what we call the Gullah Wars. This is how the French, right, under Adam Weishaupt, using the Louisiana Purchase, and they were able to then do a survey on the land, what they call Lewis and Clark's expedition. As they surveyed the land, they found all our castles empty and said, there's no royalty here. This land is abandoned. But they don't know our culture like we do, because if my soldiers is going to war, I'm standing in the army with them. I'm not sending a motherfucker to fight in anything that I'm not willing to fight in myself. Right? So once these wars begin to take place, Lewis and Clark declared the land empty because they went as far west as Washington State. Right? And the translator we know as a blackamoor by the name of Ben Bay. Ben Bay is Benjamin Banneker. Benjamin Banneker is credited with the design of Washington, D.C., which is massive sigils that's used for conjure purpose, and we call that the city of D.C. Right? So once they established that, they moved our capital, because our capital was originally Philadelphia. Right? Philadelphia is the city of brotherly love, but it's also the Delphi oracles was central there. So they telling us that the oracles of Delphi was from Greece. That's because Greece was a Hellenistic culture under Helen as a woman. But Rome was a Hellenistic culture, but they turned Helen into a man. This is what they call beheading the god, or when they take Medusa's head. Right? So taking Medusa's head is them switching the gods out. That's an Anunnaki war tactic. So they use changing of the names. So when Enki named his son Seth, then Enlil named his son Sethian. Right? Just so he can say that they're different people, and he can try to switch places with him in retrospect. Right? So from there, we get into the 1900s, and we get into us trying to restore our people, and we got all of these other people that's fighting for power to never let us know who he is, and that's what they call the Masonic secret. So I'm gonna stop right there for questions.
Well, first of all, I know I started the live a little bit off center, but I appreciate everybody still keeping up with us, because I'm learning how to use StreamYard. However, I missed the introduction on the live, so I'm Sunny Moon L, Mother Treaties here, and for the record, we're not coming in as the adepts. And again, this is the adepts chamber, so the people that are joining us and make sure that we're on point are the adepts, just to make that clear. But I do want to just make that public for the record, on the record. And other than that, yes, we're on with you. My thing was, as far as the conquistadors, we know who they were before. Who are the conquistadors now, and what do these organizations like? Is it the Greek letter organization? Is it Divine Nine? Like, who are these? Are they the Imposter Wars, the Dirty Wars?
Okay, now let me answer that. So, where are these people now? They look like us. They masquerade as our leadership in the community, but they always working against us. They've infiltrated every secret society, every alphabet organization. They stronghold paramilitary organization is known as the JDL, the Jewish Defense League. But everybody think that's a pale-skinned organization. Look at the symbols, right? When you look at the symbols, their symbol is the black fist. That doesn't make sense. Okay, they are working as the paramilitary branch. They're the same ones you'll find in all of the celebrities' FBI files issuing death threats and extortion plots in order to take the wealth from our celebrities. So you find them in Tupac file, Biggie file, you find them in Michael Jackson file, you find them in Prince file, you find them in some of the non-melanated celebrities like what's my man name? Robin Williams, who they said committed suicide, but that was a flat-out murder. They call them star whackers in Hollywood. This in the protection from them in Hollywood before the Nation of Islam got out there was a group that we call Scientologists. The Scientologists was diffusing the situation because they couldn't get to the wealth of the actors because of the structure of Scientology. So that's why all of the celebrities start running the L. Ron Hubbard Scientology, right? So when we started to become instrumental in movies and music in the Hollywood, then the Nation of Islam's FOI have to come in because they're the only ones who know how to defend us from this enemy. They were trained
too.
The what?
Haven't they joined Scientology as well?
Well, that's a military strategy.
Okay.
So you got the people that's protecting the Europeans in Hollywood, Scientologists, bump into these dudes that's protecting us in Hollywood called FOI. They both performing the same function for two different groups against the same enemy. The art of war say the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So it's only natural that they have to end up creating some kind of alliance because they still fighting the dirty Moors. That's why L. Ron Hubbard moved onto a boat so he wouldn't be under their jurisdiction on the land, because they flipped the land jurisdiction to the water. They don't have any jurisdiction on the land. They flipped the water jurisdiction on the land. That's called admiralty law. The admiralty and maritime law is codified and controlled by the Uniform Commercial Code. The Uniform Commercial Code is what they call the International Law of Nations. The International Law of Nations governs international corporate jurisdictional law. So when you become a national, you become a straw man in your nation. As a straw man, you are a dead entity, a legal fiction. You don't really exist. So therefore, whatever they do to you is only a fiction and they can't suffer a consequence. It's not true. They doing this to you because you allowing them to do it to you because you don't know what they doing. That's an adhesion contract that they have you under that you don't know you signing. When they say nationality is the order of the day, it expired July the 4th, 2019. Because using the nationality system under Noble Drew Ali's original format, you was able to navigate and live your life without ever being affected by these people being on the land. But when we start fighting to be part of their system, we abandon our system. We abandon Elijah Muhammad. We abandon Noble Drew Ali. We abandon Marcus Garvey. We abandon Booker T. Washington. We abandon W.E.B. Du Bois. How are we going to get out of this condition? Right? So what we end up doing was all of the chiefs just put their part in the public domain until one of us can figure out how to put all of the pieces of the puzzle together so that we can exile the imposters. In New Jersey, they are known as the Moorish Zionist Jews. And they are called blackamoors by the Moorish title. They look like us, but they not us. If you look up the picture of Noble Drew Ali in Chicago in front of the temple, Then you look up the picture of them in front of their temple. They are mimicking, but they're giving signs in the pictures. But nobody knows how to read the signs because everybody is caught in the dogma that they can't get to the science part. This is why C. Freeman Eels information is critical to the understanding of more science, because he teach you how to read the symbols. And you go back to the Q drop and it said, what's going to be their undoing? The symbols. The symbols is going to expose them, right? Which takes us to the flag. Well, the flag that they flying in the Moorish Science Temple today with the 5-point star has been a Moorish Science Temple flag longer than it's been a Moroccan state flag. Make that shit make sense. They copying Moorish science and Noble Jew Ali in order to perpetuate their dogmatic pursuits and oppression. We not buying it, we done with it, and it don't work no more. So the women's consulate of Moors have been keeping the secret among themselves as to how Noble Jew Ali got infiltrated. Because don't nobody want to tell the story about the muftis. The muftis that gave him up to Rome, as they call it. Of course they did. They was fucking Romans. They was Etruscan Moors. Before they was called Moors, when they went into Europe after they got kicked out of Africa, they was called Etruscans. When they invaded from in the Iberian Peninsula of Europe, when they came in from the southeast, they came in as the Byzantine kings of the Ottoman Empire. This is where we get the term Els, Bays, and Days in the Moorish Science Temple, because you tagging the motherfuckers doing the dirt. Right? So now we get to George Washington and the 200-year challenge in order to develop a ceasefire. The ceasefire was a settlement that was written up as the Paris Accord. We know it today as the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. It wasn't even signed on this land, so therefore any enforcement on this land is in a direct contradiction to the law of the land, which goes back to the native woman who put the Pope on notice, and she had to tell him that the chiefs are now active on the land and that these motherfuckers is running out of time, they got to go, right? And all of the time they've been telling us that white supremacy was about your skin color. It was about being a free white person in law. When you look it up in Black Law Dictionary under free white person in law, clear as day it say Moors. Clear as day. So the whole thing was a chess game between adepts. The ones who were here were on defense, so they take up the banner or the moniker of black.
Question. So what do you think of us? Because we call ourselves American Indians.
Indian is not our term. It's the same as the Moor. They thrusting names on us, like I explained to the sister about Seminole. When we say they talking about Seminole Wars, they telling it from the Europeans' perspective, from the conquistadors, the French and the English that we fought. But when you say Gullah Wars, you telling it from our people's history, perspective, and angle, and we don't tell the same story exactly the same. Their story is that we was runaway slaves and we congregated with the natives and made the strong fighting force in Florida. Our position in the Gullah Wars is we ain't slaves, we ain't finna be your slave, and we'll fight your motherfucking ass until the end of the earth. So this is the difference in how the stories is being told between our elders and the people that came. The people that came want to hold on to the narrative and make us assume the position as a national free white person in law, because that's the big eye concept of the Etruscan doctrine.
Okay.
We don't believe in that.
So, but we go by nations. So does it still say we're not who we are when we say that we Blackfoot, Wissaponie, Catawba, Choctaw?
When you use those tribal designations like that, Choctaw, the Dungdamounja, Washita, Cherokee. Cherokee is also a term that they trust us.
Kitawa.
Right? It's not the original name. The name Cherokee was specifically created to produce some people that we call reservation invaders, $5 Indians.
Mm-hmm.
This is who they was making their contracts with under the pretense that they was making the contracts with us. But when you go to all our elders, they say we never signed treaties with them people. Our people never signed treaties with them. So who in the fuck is this signing the treaties? It's the servants they brought because they fought wars against the Mongols and the Huns.